It is now recorded.
Okay. So welcome everyone. OpenStack Ops Radio Hour. There aren't many of us here today. It's midwinter Friday. I know it's difficult, but you know what we're doing here is trying to get the operators community and the general OpenStack community together and discuss running this software, particularly at scale and for production. Try and exchange expertise. One of the things that I've struggled with is just getting the message out. And so the first item on the agenda is a survey um, to see whether we can mix this up in terms of how we notify people, when it happens, how often it happens. So if you click through, I know there's only Andreas who's just listening in. He says, if you click through on the link um, here, Ops Radio Hour survey, um, we've got a number of options where people can give us feedback. So the idea is you would so I don't think that shows when I click through to that, it doesn't change my screen, right? The thing that's on the video is still the Etherpad. Um, but the idea is you would
You
add
know,
entries under what's that?
sorry. So like Meetpad itself, it has a built-in function that it opens the Etherpad with the same name as the meeting's name, so the same
Mm-hmm.
ending of the URL. If you want to show other content on the screen, you can share your screen. But the Etherpad that everyone sees, if they open the shared document, that's the meeting agenda and notes Etherpad.
Got it.
Just to clarify, so you can share your screen if you want, but if people go and click on the survey link, that should open for them as well, so they should be able to
Okay.
follow otherwise
So
too, but yell if you're not able to, or if you don't see the shared document or something. Andreas and Lukas.
so let me just try that. So the idea is that so can everyone see um, the the survey now in the video? Hello.
I can't, but
Lol.
now I can. So
Okay. So
people
I think
need
the idea is
to, sorry, just
you would
people need to go to the three dots and close shared document, and then they will see your screen, because otherwise it will be over your screen. Now you stopped sharing.
I don't know where the three dots are. Sorry, this is
No, no, no. For some reason I don't see the survey anymore. Oh no, oh, you were just switching. So that's fine. No,
so
like people, like if you go to the bottom of the window and screen, and you see all the microphone and hand and all the things, there are three dots, and then one of the options is open and close shared document. So if you close that, if it's open, then you will see the shared screen.
okay. Um, so our idea is to send this out on every channel that we know of, and try and get some consensus on how to reach the majority of the community. And Ildiko, I think you were thinking that we would do it like this, right? Like people would put their names in. I don't know. Or are you thinking that people would do the whole survey each,
So this
like
is
each
just
person?
a draft, like in terms of what you would want to put into the survey.
But this
Um,
wouldn't be the survey. You're thinking we would use something which
so we
allows
um, we
individual
have
submissions.
the Open Info Foundation has a form stack account, so I can create it as an actual survey. I just want to
Okay,
understand what you all want to put into the survey
I
before
see.
I put it together and distribute it. I probably should have created a demo form, but since if you all want something completely different than what's here right now, then I figured that it's easier to just collaborate on an Etherpad, and you all can edit it or make
Got it.
suggestions. So yeah, once we are
So
mostly happy with it, I will create a form, and then you can review it to make sure that it still looks okay, and then I can
uh, okay.
distribute it.
So each person would fill in a copy of this on some kind of survey system. Understood. I thought it was actually you wanted people to survey via Etherpad, which is confusing me. So the one thing I added questions at the top because this isn't the survey, it's the survey content. What are the channels that we get people on? I personally will not use Twitter, but I know that some people do. We're having a spirited debate about that within Bloomberg because we have some accounts there and the people who are on them like posting, but I think it's unacceptable. LinkedIn apparently has some traction. Blue Sky I don't use, but there are some there. Reddit, Mastodon. I like Mastodon, but engagement is fairly low there, I must admit. And then obviously the traditional ones, email. The sort of new official one, I guess, is Matrix, just word of mouth, friends and colleagues, or anything else. Does this cover all the options, would you say? I mean, Thierry, do you have a view on that?
Yes, I think it covers everything.
And Cadence, Ildiko put a lot of work into finding a slot that seems to be least bad for the most people. It's not particularly great for West Coasters, but it's apparently just about doable. And that also still comes within the workday for at least Europe. And then we have been doing it monthly, which seems to work. I think there were suggestions to go more often, but honestly, we'd have to demonstrate that there were people who would turn up and then time slots. We're currently at this time slot. I forget what it is right now in UTC. Is it 1200? Remind me. Well, anyway, that's what we're thinking of sending out to the community. Because the problem is that some people are here, some people are there, some people are over in another place. The community actually isn't a single community; it's a bunch of separate people. And the old ops meetups, as Ildiko's saying, used to do a lot of its business by just being on Twitter and the mailing list. There used to be a dedicated operators mailing list, but now it's all on OpenStack Discuss, which I find it's just too much. I actually don't read it. So I'm one of the people who's maybe siloed. It's difficult to, so if I don't know how to stop sharing now, let me do that. So that's the survey. We only have a couple of sort of attendees who aren't like institutional. Any comment on that, Andreas or Francesco or Daniel? I'm not trying to call you out, but this is not a presentation. It's meant to be a working group. It's meant to be a chat, right?
No comment from me. I think it this time slot works perfectly for me. So
Okay, so I think as I usually do
For
to
me.
try and resolve this, I would say it's currently unopposed. So I think someone who thinks the survey needs change should speak up. I was just speaking over somebody. Please go ahead.
I am on UTC +1, so Europe Rome, and to me the current time it's okay. But if it has to be changed so that more people can participate, it should be okay too.
Okay, great. I think we wanted to make sure that we tried to hear from the people who can't make this slot. So therefore, discussing it in this slot maybe is counterproductive or at least useless, but it seems like people think the survey is a valid attempt. So Ildiko, I think we should just say that we'll send it out before the next meeting and then act on it. So are you going to put it on the Open Infra survey system that you mentioned?
Yes, I will. I will put it together there, and then I will send it maybe to you and Eric just to proofread it, and then we can I can send it out to OpenStack Discuss and some of the other channels where people hang out.
Cool. Okay.
And also maybe ask you all to help distribute the survey at that point once it's ready and running.
Yes. Yes. So I actually skipped over the first item on the agenda, which was 2026 plans. Honestly, my plan is carry on doing this, and obviously we are carrying on with. I'm going to actually type into the Etherpad just to show you that you can do it while talking. So we are actually still very focused on live migration. We are upstreaming some changes which make live migration much faster in the default mode, which is where it copies the memory over and finishes and then brings up the new copy of the instance. We haven't tested post copy, which is the other way of doing it, where it brings it up early and then there's a page fault for pages that it needs that haven't been copied yet. That seems even more performant potentially, but it has some downsides. The other thing we are doing urgently, but all of a sudden, is we're going to have to squeeze our cloud harder, because we've seen price rises for our servers from our vendors, even though we have contracts of, I think I heard 120% or more. That's for the whole server, obviously, because server RAM has more than quadrupled in price in the past 6 months. So we're going to be trying things like mild memory overcommit. Now, we haven't overcommitted memory in the past. Frankly, we didn't want VMs to ever fight about memory, so they all have a reserved amount equal to the nominal amount of memory in their flavor. So, for instance, a 64 gig flavor has 64 gig of idle RAM sitting on the server until it uses it. However, if we can't get enough hardware, or if we get half as much for the money, we are going to have to do better. And so we will be doing that. And other sites already overcommit. They run their VMs, extremely densely packed on servers. So I'm not trying to say it's state of the art, but this is a challenge that we have suddenly run into. We already do CPU overcommit at about 4 or 5 to 1, but typically our applications don't end up fighting for cores, because they use so much RAM that by the time we've given them all those slices of RAM, the server's full before it ever runs out of available cycles. So as usual, if you try and move one slider, as an engineer, you move one thing, it starts to interfere with other things. If we get more VMs on a hypervisor, we might also have CPU starvation. And we do actually manage CPU starvation. We move instances around if we get CPU steal. So we're able to deal with that, but it might get worse, and then the trade-offs become more and more complex as you try and sort of optimize everything to the max. And the usual stuff. We are still growing OpenStack, new deployments in Europe and Japan. And at some point in the future, there'll be more data centers. I know that people didn't tune in to get an update from me or from Bloomberg, but I'm trying to sort of give an example of what people might talk about. So in particular on the Ops Radio thing, if we need to do it more often, or we need to do it at different times or alternating times, then I'll do my best to do that. but it really does depend on some engagement with the survey. Otherwise, this slot I think is the established one that's worked. For those who might be new, this is the track record that we have so far. I hope people can see that highlighting. It's always unclear to me. Basically, if you look from the top of the document down, it says sign up to MCA Radio Hour, and we've done about 9 of these now. So it seems to be working. Anyway, that was my 2026 plans. Anyone else want to speak about what's going on for them in OpenStack, or adjacent topics? If not, then the last item on the agenda for now is Cinder ops complexities. I did read the questions, but I don't think that we've actually run into the problem of changing block QoS and having to do data migration. So I can't actually lead that discussion in technical depth. We are basically all Ceph based, and we do disk QoS. We basically limit the reads and writes, but I haven't heard of us running into this thing of changing it. I think basically we're only at the stage where we've just imposed limits globally, and that's basically flushed out a couple of applications that are super heavy disk users. And actually one of them has had to move to physical because they were basically capable of using more than half of the entire aggregate IOPS of a very large Ceph cluster. So, I don't want people to move off the cloud, but on the other hand, some workloads just need locally attached storage, the end, as far as I'm concerned. And Ceph is durable, it's self-healing, it's scalable, et cetera, but you can't match 22 NVMEs in your chassis for your IOPS. So that's all I have on that question. I don't know if the person who put that on the agenda is even on the call. So if you are, where are you with this? Are you just hoping to find other people who can discuss this with you, or are you thinking about some upstream changes? Maybe they're not on the call. Unfortunately, the color coding doesn't seem to reveal who it might be. If you're not familiar with Etherpad, you can see, for instance, that I typed my name, Chris Morgan, in Bloomberg. And then you can see that when I type on the Etherpad, you can see it, but I don't know if the person who typed the Cinder thing is even here. Is there anyone on the call who's even run into OpenStack block QoS limits? I mean, not limits, but settings having to causing data migration if you change them. We seem to have an agenda item, but the person hasn't attended. So that's a difficult thing to discuss. Is anyone even running interesting storage? This person says they use Lightbits, NetApp, and HPE. We do have Lightbits in test, but there's nothing wrong with the product. But I think in the OpenStack context, it doesn't deliver obvious benefits to us. I think it's very fast in the Kubernetes thing where the data path is much tighter. But honestly, we have, I don't know, 100 petabytes or something of Ceph, and it's pretty good for us. So that's our main bet. It's just Ceph. Okay, that topic is obviously not working. Again, this is meant to be a discussion. That's not a presentation. If this was a presentation every month, I wouldn't put my name down, honestly. What other topics do people want to talk about? You actually do have to speak and participate to make this work, or it's just not gonna carry on. I'm not gonna put anyone on the spot, but speak to me, people.
And regarding
further, so I won't I won't really help. But
go
ahead.
Okay. Talking about storage. I have nothing to say as I'm still using NFS as a backend and I'm planning to switch to Ceph. But a thing that I'm interested in is live upgrades and HA. So, for example, how can a cloud with OpenStack be configured to work in high availability? Because I have not found a lot of documentation on this, and I'm working on an architecture. For some parts, like RabbitMQ, I worked out a solution. Like, okay, RabbitMQ has its own clustering method. I put out a cluster, okay. But now, if I want to do, for example, two different Neutron or Nova controller VM so that I can have a failover, or I can restart one of them, where do I start? And I know it is possible, but just it's not that I found many pointers online.
Sure. So it's a great question. The way that we do high availability is we have all our services behind a layer 3 VIP, which is fronting an HA proxy based load balancer, and all the services are mediated by HA proxy. We have clustered MySQL using the Galera patch. So it's I forget the vendor, but it's clustered MySQL. So we have 3 or 5 MySQL nodes. We have, I think, 5 Rabbit nodes. You obviously have to run Ceph in HA. You need a minimum 3 monitor nodes, or at least nodes that have CephMod and Ceph Manager on. You can run storage on them as well, but we don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, sorry if I didn't explain myself. The issue I have with the docs is not with technologies that have their own clustering, for example, Galera for MariaDB or MySQL, or the clustering for RabbitMQ, but mainly with the OpenStack components itself. Like, for example, I want to have a Horizon dashboard in HA. Okay, it's an West GI. I can put HA proxy in front of it, for example. But if I want to have something that it's not stateless, like Neutron in HA, it becomes more complicated.
So we do run multiple Neutron processes on multiple what we call head nodes. I couldn't sketch out how that works in detail, it does work fairly well. Although Neutron is something that we're actually struggling to scale because our installations can get up to between 1,000 and 2,000 nodes, and at that level, our Neutron implementation is Calico, and it has some scaling problems that we're working on. But we do have, HA Neutron in the sense that there's typically 3 servers each running Neutron. I think through the load balancer. But if you have specific things about that, you can reach out to me. My public Gmail address is actually on this Etherpad. And for instance, I mentioned Lightbits. So we run Cinder in HA, and we require the storage backends to support active-active. When we first experimented with Lightbits, it didn't support that, and so we were actually experimenting with different Cinder servers for different storage backends, but we didn't want basically separate storage control planes, and that seemed like a very unsupported, very scary way. So the vendor had to step up and make Lightbits support active-active in the Lightbits case, so that for Cinder, so that it could just kind of plug in as another backend like we have with Ceph. So we do have this working. We did have our stuff open sourced for a while, and I could have just said, oh, look, you can just go download this and build it, and you can see how it works. You can program. That's not the case right now because we're doing a complete sort of gut refurb of the the automation. I don't want to sound mysterious. We had a lot of stuff based on chef recipes, and chef is no longer something we wish to use, and so our project was kind of not distributable because it required downloading chef server binary, which is no longer available without paying some vendors. So it's one of these open source tragedies where you depend on a bunch of things and one of them kind of goes sour. The new thing will be open source one day, but in the meanwhile, we want to publish the architecture. I don't have a document I can send anybody, but it's a business priority because we want to contribute. Also, it's pretty cool. It's pretty scalable, as I mentioned. We run deployments of up to 1,000 hypervisors and 1,500 overall nodes, that kind of thing. And we're working on a even more scalable because future data centers will be 4 to 8 times the size, so 4 to 8 times larger. Sorry, I'm stumbling my words. Ours is thoroughly HA. There are some challenges when you're using Calico, and we're upstreaming some changes with the vendor on that. But if you have specific questions about how do you do HA of Neutron, how do you do HA of Cinder, how do you do HA of some other thing, I could probably correspond on that by email. I'm glad that we actually got into some technical detail here. I see Thierry had to dash.
Without going in detail right now, it would be interesting to have a place to gather information like that. Maybe in the I don't know, maybe in the docs, just to know, for example, how people made their architecture, so that one can have an idea.
Yep. I see probably Ildiko trying to catch up on the notes. Thank you. So the docs for the architecture of your OpenStack was something that we wanted the operators community to own and upgrade. But I think it's a common story. We had people say, "Sure, I'll do that. I'll take that." So I can't remember the chap's name, but someone I met in Vancouver said, "Oh yeah, I know all about HA. I know about architectures. I'll upgrade the document." And then I think he just had a role change, and nothing happened there. So if this is a key challenge to the community, I think maybe we could do something there. We'd have to do a bit at a time because I think we're all busy. We all have day jobs. But let's collect some specific questions. If you can put them on this Etherpad, and I'll see if I can share some sort of not like complete working examples, but some sample configurations. To give an example of what's possible, I'm going to scroll down the Etherpad. I don't know if anyone else has seen this, but if you scroll down a couple of meetings, you'll find there was some question about live migration, and I actually put some links about live migration performance, what we're working on. There's a spec. We found that Linux transparent huge pages, if you can make your VMs enjoy the benefit of THP, then they also get much faster live migration performance. So I was able to actually, here in this Etherpad, dump some follow-on technical information based on questions that I think people found useful. So if you want to put the questions there, or if you don't think that's useful, Ildiko has been strongly.
I think it's really useful. I already had gathered some material, so now or later I can just type it in. I mean the pad is also open after the call, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that question.
Yes.
Sorry, I have some issues with the microphone. I had some materials, so I should have already some questions I wanted to ask. Can I also write them after the call ends, or does the meetpad close and I can't edit anymore?
So
the meetpad is long-lived, so you can do things there. If you want to get people's attention on it, I think what Ildiko has been suggesting is that we try and standardize on the Matrix OpenStack channel. I'm actually new to Matrix, but let me just see that it's the OpenStack Ops channel on the Matrix.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
But as I said, you can easily find my email on this Etherpad. Here it is. Well, it's a couple of meetings down, but I'll just put it.
If you all are not discussing like proprietary confidential information, it would be nice to keep it either on Matrix or OpenStack discuss mailing list so others can benefit from the tips and pointers that Chris, you might be sharing, or just anything that you figured out how to resolve a particular challenge. So it would be nice if you all could do it. And if you keep any conversation or add some more links to the Etherpad, one thing that you can also do is like you can share the Etherpad link, not the Meetpad link, but the Etherpad link. I don't know if it's on the top of this Etherpad. Yeah, it is. No, it is the Meetpad. Anyway, I will put in the Etherpad link on the top of it too. So people can, when the shared document is open, you can see the Etherpad link itself too. That is the long living document once the meeting is done. So if you put any links that you want to point people at, you can click on the numbers, the row numbers on the left in the Etherpad, and grab that link. Obviously, the as the content grows, that will not be accurate later, but like if you're in a synchronous communication with someone, you can point at lines within the Etherpad, so you can point people roughly where the things are that you put, if you put in links or questions, so you can still utilize the Etherpad if you're chatting on Matrix or OpenStack discuss mailing list or other forums.
Okay, thank you.
Basically, I'll do my best in whatever media I see, but there's so many that's the problem that we're trying to address with the survey, is to possibly refocus on a couple. And Matrix is semi-official. I think it's the Foundation's view that we should go there. This Etherpad is mostly to facilitate the meeting, but I know that you want answers soon, but this is something we do actually want to publish, is our HA architecture. In addition to running the services HA, we also have a pure layer 3 network foundation. So that scales out the wazoo. That's basically an internet scale potential. Because layer 2 is inherently limited in size. You end up with having to buy large switches and you run out of ports and things. Ours is a pure routed layer 3 fabric. So that gives us tremendous potential. As I say, we're looking to run at much larger scale.
Sorry. Also, meanwhile, I'm trying to write some possible questions I'm interested in. Is it a problem?
No, go right ahead. You can certainly start on this Etherpad. As I mentioned, I have used it. When we had some interest in live migration performance, people said, I really want to know more. And I did the follow-up information here on the Etherpad, and then I emailed the person back saying, look, I put it in the public doc just for easy access for anybody in this community, basically. But Ildiko, I think, is suggesting that it might be better to just use the Matrix system and the OpenStack Ops channel there. Either is fine by me. It's just that this Etherpad certainly isn't going to ping me if someone puts a question here in a week's time. I might see it if I'm updating it, but it's basically a shared document, not a messaging system. So there is that.
Okay, thank you.
In case anyone is wondering why we don't mention Slack or other commercial discussion systems message boards, it has been discussed. and actually there are some OpenStack communities on Slack. There's a Latin American one, for instance. The trouble is, Slack is expensive now for open source communities. And if you don't pay them, then after a few months, all of the conversations are archived or made inaccessible. They show you like a blur outline in Slack, for instance. And it's not sustainable even for communities with, red hot interactions. I mean, I think the cloud native Kubernetes people are finding that Slack is expensive for, a very large, very active community. Who's going to pay for that? We have Slack inside Bloomberg, but that doesn't fund the other organizations on Slack that I'm a member of. So yes, they exist, and it would be nice, but who's going to pay? That's the problem. Etherpad is free and runs on Open Infra infrastructure. Meatpad is free, again, runs on Open Infra. IRC is free because it's a venerable internet-based protocol. It's not a commercial thing with a single vendor. I like Mastodon because that's also free, and I run my own. But I know that that hasn't really taken off. So that's why we're doing the survey, because it's not clear where everyone could agree to congregate, so that you ask a question, I see it, I respond, someone else can benefit from that. That's the big challenge right now, I think, is actually put the community back together, following Twitter imploding, should we say. Okay, so I'm a manager. I've run many teams. Normally I cut meetings off when we run out of material. This is slightly different because it has a scheduled. Someone's put their hand up. Okay, go right ahead. Just speak up.
Hi. So this is slightly maybe a little bit in line what we talked about, but as someone who is fairly new to the OpenStack community and starting now to set up our first cluster and migrating workloads over, I find that maybe sometimes the documentation is not so clear. It seems like the documentation on the OpenStack website is like gathered from all the different projects, and sometimes you would want something more, and when you start to work with it and you figure something out, you think, okay, this would be good if it was in the documentation. What is there any way for, and how would one go about to contribute back information into the documentation? Do you know that?
So all the documentation is open source. You would I think you have to sign a contributor licensing agreement, and then you can basically submit change requests. I haven't actually done it recently. We have colleagues of mine are doing code changes, but we have submitted document changes. But it's basically an open source document set as well, and it's not a GitHub thing. It's something else, but it has the similar thing that you submit change proposals. I forget what they call them, and then people have to review them. They have to pass tests. In the case of docs, I think the tests are probably just that it renders. It doesn't have like parsing errors. And then there has to be some number of +1s or recognize people. So it's in the outline. It's familiar. I don't know what you use in your office. We have GitHub Enterprise internally, so we are not like immediately exactly familiar with it. But I have colleagues who went from a blank page to being OpenStack contributors to code and documents this year. So it's not, in the past 12 months. So,
you don't need to sign a license agreement anymore. The OpenStack community has switched to the DCO process, if you're familiar with that. Developer Certificate of Origin. So when you submit your change into Gerrit, that's what OpenStack community is using for code review, then you will need to create your commit with a sign-off message at the bottom that will have your email address, and that means that you signed your commit and your change, certifying that you had the rights to publish that in the open source repo. In terms of structuring the documentation, in my understanding, but I haven't followed it very closely, the documentation was so project teams are responsible for their own pieces of documentation of that particular OpenStack project or service, and so it in terms of where to change and tweak documentation, that will depend on like what you want to update specifically. Let
Okay.
me try to find their OpenStack has a contributor guide, which hopefully um, answers your questions on how to contribute things, including documentation. Let me, I will throw that in the chat, and then I will find a good place for that in the Etherpad as well.
Hmm.
Okay, so I just threw in the link to the OpenStack contributor guide that should have all the information on like setting up accounts at different places if you haven't done any of that yet, and should be a good guidance on how to contribute things like documentation. And if something is out of date, then yeah, I think I will dig up some of the information on where to find people on like broader scale documentation question. But the OpenStack Discuss mailing list is a really good catch-all place if you run into something that you would not be able to pinpoint an IRC or matrix channel to ask somebody. So the mailing list is a good place to say that, oh, I wanted to update this piece of documentation and I'm lost. So the mailing list will have all the people who are contributing to the various projects and bits and pieces and documentation. So if nothing else, people should be able to point you to the right direction there.
Okay. Yeah. I can see here it says yeah, it seems to be fairly detailed. So
Yes, I worked on it myself for a little while, so it's mostly not my doing, but I do have a little bit of my handiwork in it too. We tried to be very thorough, and in that regard, if we were a bit too thorough, hopefully it did not get out of date. But we were trying to put in practices too, and not just the dry. This is where you create your account and then off you go. So I'm hoping that you will find it useful. But if you feel or experience that it might be out of date or not, didn't get you to where you wanted to be able to do what you wanted to do, then yeah, reach out at OpenStack Discuss, and then the community will catch it, and it will get updated.
yeah, yeah, thank you very much.
And obviously,
It's
the
worth
contributor guide is also something that you can go and fix. So I used to be one of the, we used to run an upstream university, how to contribute to OpenStack training that was co-located with Open Infra Summits in the past. So we often had the students in the room fix up some typos and things that they found in the contributor guide as they were going through it. So it's an excellent opportunity to do your first contribution if you find something that is trivial to fix. If you haven't contributed yet and want to try it out and find a typo in it or something, then you can also start there and just fix that one first. And then you'll have the experience.
Good.
It's also worth pointing out there did used to be a whole documentation team at one point. So they kind of owned all that and they did a great job. Unfortunately, due to various cutbacks, they don't exist anymore. So it really is just down to those people using it to try and drag the docs for as well as the code.
Yeah.
That's one of the things we're trying to spin up as more contributions from my employer.
Yeah, and sometimes when you sit and troubleshoot something, and we are now in the middle of an upgrade, sometimes you find things that are not in the documentation or things that is noteworthy that you can put into to make it easier for other people. So that was my idea as we now gather information on maybe pitfalls and stuff like that, it's good to put it in if it's possible.
Definitely.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm glad we got into that. It's a great point. How do you contribute? Documentation is an eternal challenge, of course. What I was about to say is that generally I'm trained to cut meetings off when we run out of useful discussion. So I will say now, any final points, because I'll just call it last call. We don't have to actually run a whole hour. I see someone's put their hand up. Go ahead.
Francesco has his hand up.
Yep.
I mean, a couple of interesting things to discuss would be how people handle backups, if they have handled them at all, or just rely on storage reliability. Like, for example, if you have a strong enough Ceph backend, do you really need to make backups? And in case, how do you make them? As now Freezer is not, I mean, it's in a strange stage, as there is some activity, but it's not being released.
Sure. So I can
And
go.
another interesting thing to know would be how people automate their clouds. For example, I have mine automated with Foreman, the one I work on with Foreman and Puppet OpenBox, but it would be interesting to know how people do it and to improve also documentation on automation. It's not I want to discuss it now, it's just some points that I think that could be interesting.
So may I suggest that we dump this onto the agenda for next time, Francesco? I think that's what you're saying, is that this would be interesting to discuss, and that might be a great thing for us to notify people about the next one, saying these are the topics. So I think I'll go ahead and say that. I think I'll do that. I can also answer the questions very briefly, just from our perspective. We provide durable storage, but no backups within our cloud. Those people who need backups have to basically mark their applications as needing backups. And then that goes to the data protection team, which is a different team. And they basically do backups as if they're a physical server. So they install an agent, it goes off to a backups complex, which I think is disk-based, and ultimately can go out to tape libraries. So it's ultra traditional. That contrasts with some solutions which are kind of OpenStack native. We have talked to vendors, they sound great to me, but we haven't bought any, unfortunately. And then for automation, and again, I'm not trying to cover this thing, I'm just giving a flavor. For automation, we used to use Chef, which has a vendor issue now, I would say. So we're going to Ansible for the core machine build stuff, like configuring the HA and the networking and that kind of stuff. And then cloud level automation, for instance, load leveling. We do stuff based. We use Apache Airflow at a sort of much higher level of abstraction to sort of manage our cloud. Great topic that Ildikos just brought up that I hadn't thought of. When do we do the next meeting? I haven't looked at the calendar, Ildikos, so I don't know.
February 20 and 27 are the Fridays, and I know I will be putting together the survey and everything, but I think it would be beneficial to have a fixed date for the next meeting so that people can plan with it, and there we can review how many survey responses we got, and if we have a critical mass to either say that we are going to stick to this cadence and time slot or we are going to make changes. But like doing all that announcement like on the fly, that I think that would be very disruptive. So I don't know if I'm not aware of, well, I don't know if anyone has any events or particular plans towards like a month-ish from now, end of February, but those two are the Fridays.
I don't have a preference. I think that close to the end of the month just feels better than something that's only just over 3 weeks away, but
Yeah, we usually did the last Friday of the month. For this one, I think we moved it a little back because FOSDEM is next weekend. So people might, especially those who are located in Europe, they might go to FOSDEM or co-located events, and that might affect the attendance. And if we have it the last Friday of February, then it gives more time for people to discover and fill out the survey as well. So that works.
sounds good to me. So let's call it the 27th, unless someone points out some huge clash like some other conference or something like that. But I'm not aware. I don't have my calendar in front of me. I have to not be logged in to use Meetpad. Unfortunately, I can't. I'm not in my corporate network right now. So let's go with that. If we put out the message February 27th, and here's a survey about when we'll do these things. Maybe we can get some feedback on, should it be monthly? Is the 27th okay? And time slot, etc. But I think we are out of time now, so that's surprising actually, because it's a slightly smaller gathering this time. But let's get the message out on all those channels. I'll do what I can, and I'm going to have to ask my colleague who's supposed to be here what happened. So Francesco, for the agenda for next week, I will put backups and automation as topics to try and kick off some interesting discussion, and maybe that will attract people who want to either share or maybe learn what people are doing. So that might be a good draw, a good attraction to the next of these meetups. And there we are out of time. Thanks everyone. Any final comments? Okay, I think that's it then. Ildiko, you'll turn the recording off?
Yes.
Okay, thanks
Stopping the
everyone.
recording, yeah.